TuitionFit, and with me is Jay. Why don't you tell them who you are?
I'm Jason Wolepski, also with TuitionFit. Good afternoon, everybody.
It's really nice to have everybody on here. A couple of logistic things just to start off. There's a little chat square down in the bottom right corner, and I guess to start with, what I'm hoping is if people can just type in to tell me that you can in fact hear us okay, we're not too loud, we're not too quiet, but you can hear the audio. Oh, that's so wonderful. People can hear us. This is great. I love technology. No, this is great. This is just a lot of fun to do this with everybody. One thing in particular, I'm sure you're going to have questions as we go. And please don't hesitate to type those questions into the chat box as they come up. And then we'll try to answer them either right then, or we'll try to take a couple of breaks and answer those questions as we go. But otherwise, I think we'll just jump in and get started. Again, I'm Mark Salisbury. I am the co-founder and the CEO of TuitionFit. And it is a real treat to give this presentation to the Yes We Must Coalition of colleges that really is focused on many of the same issues that we really care about, and that is serving students, especially lower income and first generation students, and helping them not just get into college, but get into an ideally designed college experience that gives them the best education possible and helps them graduate, and graduate with less debt. So to start with, I think I'll just put a couple of little bits of information up here, and then we will get going. First of all, this is, again, Mark Salisbury and Jay. This is our information that if you want to contact us offline, we'll have this up at the end of the presentation as well. But it's really important to us to make sure you know you can reach out to us anytime. What we want to talk about really is just why is this product, why are we doing this, and how does this help people? So I guess it's pretty important to just start with what's this recruiting and admissions and pricing model space look like now? Well, as you all know, what we've run into now is a place where price really matters for people. And as a function of that, people oftentimes are saying, well, at the beginning of the process, saying things like, I have X amount of dollars to pay for higher education. What schools should I look at? Because people don't want to spend a bunch of extra time looking at schools that they ultimately couldn't afford. And there's not really a way to do that. You can find average net prices from a couple years ago. You can see it organized by socioeconomic bands, but you can't find, as a student or a family, you can't go out and find out what your actual price is going to be at the beginning of the process. However, people are looking at the cost to apply to colleges and the time that it takes, and so they don't want to apply to a school that they can't afford, and they end up then using all kinds of assumptions or just misinformation to decide what schools they will apply to. And they'll oftentimes see a sticker price and just say right out of the gate, nope, can't afford it, not applying there. Or they'll use the information that they get from parents or somebody from an older generation and say, well, public institutions are always cheaper than private institutions, so don't apply to private schools. And as you all know, now that's actually not the case very often anymore, that there's a lot of cases where a private institution is less expensive than a public institution. But of course, you don't know that unless you've applied to them. And if you don't apply, you never find out. So we've really got a situation where it's pretty tough for students and families to find a school that really would be the best fit for them, including the financial fit. And as a result, or I should say on the other side of the equation, this is stuff that you all know, college sticker prices are quite high, but the net price is now half of what the sticker price is on average. And when you have a high sticker price and then an average that's in the middle, that means that anybody's individual price is anywhere between zero and that full price. So it makes it really hard for people to figure out, well, what would be my price at a given place? I know there's the net price calculators, and I know that some of them are more accurate than others, but you still have to go to the school's website before you go to the net price calculator. So if you see the sticker price and you decide you don't want to apply there because you see that sticker price, well, you'll never get to the net price calculator. There's a survey that Sally Mae does every year about how Americans pay for college, and they have found this consistently that students and families see a sticker price and 40% of them say, we're just not going to apply. So this is the situation that a lot of small private institutions like the Yes We Must Coalition schools find themselves in. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know this because you live it every day. So both sides end up being hurt by this lack of price transparency. It's not an issue just for the public. It's certainly not an issue just for colleges and universities. It really is something that hurts both sides. And as a function of that, we see lots of schools having a harder time making their enrollment. And we see a lot of students borrowing far more than they should borrow. Now, TuitionFit we built as a solution for both sides of this issue. And we built it believing that, in fact, transparency might be the point at which we can flip this conversation and make it possible for a lot more students to find the ideal financial fit and schools to find those students. And so just very quickly to talk about how this platform works, it starts out by saying to the public, you have all of the actual prices. They're all in the award letters. So let's just share all of those award letters to a central space. Let's anonymize all of the personal information, but let's organize the data by need and merit. So students upload the award letters that they receive, and then they share their test scores and their high school GPAs and their EFC. And then we anonymize the personal information on the award letter, and we organize the data. So then a student who has shared information gets to see this. This is a display from an actual student this year. They have shared award letters from Clark University, Mount Mercy University, St. Andrews University, and Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. We provide just a couple of little basic information about the type of school and the location of the school. And then the sticker price is the direct cost, the tuition, fees, room and board. And we've pulled that from postings from those schools' websites, and we keep that updated. We know how to read award letters because we've been doing it for 50 years when you combine the experience in the team at TuitionFit. And so we know how to make sense of those award letters. We know how to throw out work study and other things that aren't actually the things that are going to be free money, because what we want to get to is what's the price that's going to be on the student's bill when they receive a bill in July or August. That's what we want to be able to show people. So we can tell from each of these award letters how much money is in grants and scholarships. We can tell how much money on the award letter is loan money. And then we can see the 4 actual prices that that student has been awarded from these 4 schools. We also note if there's anything in the award letter that it indicates that there's some front-loaded money. There's a 1-year award in here that's not going to be around next year, just because we want people to see that. Then below this is where this tool really gets interesting for the public, because previously this student would have only known these 4 prices, and this is the sort of full scope of the options they have. But in fact, other students with similar test scores and similar EFCs have also uploaded award letters they've received. So now this student can see all these other prices that other students have received from applying to other schools, but the students are similar. So this student can see that they've applied to 3 private institutions, but down here they see that Sarah Lawrence, the price at Sarah Lawrence is much less than the 3 institutions that she's applied to. And then on the public institution side, she can see that in fact Northern Illinois is offering a price that's $2,500 less than Southern Illinois. And you can see this little icon over here on the far right. The student wants to be able to see, and we wanted to make everything transparent. So what the student can then do is click on that, and they can see the actual award letter from which the data came. The private information is all redacted, and we've anonymized all this stuff, but this allows folks to double check, see the data, and just make this very clear and very transparent. So that's how this tool works. And for this student in particular, she was then able to use this information to look at the Northern Illinois award letter, talk to Southern, see if they would do anything with the price they were offering, and ultimately she chose to go to Northern Illinois. So that's how this tool works on the student side, and it's great and functioned very well for students there. But what we want to show you is this is intended to help both the students and the colleges find each other more effectively, and colleges like the schools in the Yes We Must Coalition to help your schools find the students more effectively. So what I thought we'd do next is have Jay walk through the college side of the platform. Here you go, Jay.
Well, I think now we all need to take a deep breath and take in all that good information Mark just shared with us. And what I want to show you now is for the colleges, the admissions teams, the financial aid teams, this is the exciting piece of it that you guys will actually be able to access just sitting at your desk as a subscriber to TuitionFit. So this is the actual screen, and in a few minutes here, we're actually going to take you live to the platform, and then you can see how the platform operates and the way that it functions. So the first things that we have circled up here, as Mark mentioned, when students create accounts, we ask them some demographic information. So what you're going to be able to see is that same information. It's just formatted a different way for you to organize. So each one of these students you can identify by the color shade change on your screen. And in this first little heading here that we have circled in red, what you're going to be able to identify is the state that they're located, their gender, the test score that they've received, their GPA, and their EFC. Now this section here is important to you because now you can start with the admissions team and your financial aid team, you can start to formulate what your pricing structure would be for a student like this. And you can also start to put together, your acceptance policies on these folks as well, and seeing what type of student this is and if this is a good fit for your school also. These next couple of questions that we asked students, we wanted to make sure that they were getting information that was valuable to them. And we also want to make sure that you can provide that information and make sure that this is a good student for your institution as well. So we asked them if there's a required major. So something that they're absolutely going to study, this is what I want. I'm not going to attend a school unless, of course, they have this program. The next is a required activity. So this can be any of the fine arts. This can be sports. In today's world, this could be gamers. If you have a program like that, I know my daughter just graduated from a college that started a gaming program. But this is just to make sure that we're setting the stage for a good match between your school and the students. And now this is where it gets fun. So in this section here, the information that you're going to be able to access are the actual colleges they applied to, they were accepted to, the price that was being asked, the price that the student would be, like Mark was mentioning, would be required to pay, come that term in September and August, the loan amount that's included in that price. And also, we're always comparing apples to apples. So if there's any non-renewable awards, we wanted to make sure we identified those as well. But in the right-hand side here in that circle piece, once you click on that, you also, as an institution, is going to be able to see the redacted award letter that was actually uploaded into our system. So for the first time during the process of recruiting students, you're going to actually be able to see what was offered to these students in what format, and everything that other colleges are presenting to these students, and then the students, of course, based on their merit and their need. So think about the opportunities here when it comes to your offers, your financial aid strategies. We think far in advance here at TuitionFit. Think of this information year after year, as you're planning year after year with your strategies as far as the financial aid piece of it goes. Now, we asked them also a couple of interesting questions, and we want to give you some insight into what these students are thinking. So we asked them, the school that you have applied to, before you receive the award letter, will you rank the school on how badly you want to attend that school? 1 is, yep, I absolutely want to go to this school, and 5 is, it's not the top of my list. And then the next question we asked them is, after you receive that award letter, now where does that student rank on your list of possible schools to attend? So what this will give you as an institution is some insight into what the student was thinking when they applied. And then once they receive that award letter, where are they at now? Did they absolutely say, oh, God, this is great, I'm going to accept this, and this is where I'm going to go? Or did it change, similar to the top student there, from an initial rank of 3 at Marquette University? Once they receive that award letter, now they're like, no way, I'm not going there, I can't afford it, whatever the reason is. But you're going to have that insight. And the last column here for your schools, and this is where the recruiting piece of it comes in. So now you've identified students, you've identified them by merit, need, what your financial package would be for them, what your actual cost would be for them, and you want to talk to these students. So at this point, it's still completely anonymous. So what you do as a recruiting tool is say, hey, you know what? I think this would be a great student. This would be a great fit for our institution. So I am going to send them an invitation. So you go down to the box there, and you would click on it, and it's going to send them an email invitation. And what that email is going to say is it's going to introduce your school, your institution. It's going to tell them a couple of things about the school, and that your price is competitive, it's a better value. And if they would like to accept that invitation, you now can exchange contact information, and you can continue this recruiting piece off of the TuitionFit site. And if you're looking down this column, you'll notice that there are some opted out folks. So these are people that have opted out of the invite feature, and we ask them to do that once a college is selected. We don't want institutions recruiting students who've already committed to another school. So that's the opted out piece.
You think they're ready to see this thing live?
Let's go live.
All right. So we're going to show you what TuitionFit looks like live. You've just been seeing some snapshots there, and so, but here's what that same platform. I'll scroll up to the top. So here's that same platform now. This is a live view, and you can see all the same things that you were just seeing. You see the basic demographic information about the student over here, and then as you get through, you see the required activity or required major, and then the schools that the students uploaded, the prices that they got, their reactions to those schools, both before seeing an award letter and then after. And then if you wanted to click on the award letter to see it, boom, there you go. This is the award letter from Emerson, from the student that's a little bit farther down the tool. And as you can see, there's a lot of students that are still on here, and many of them have opted out because they have found the school that they're looking for, and they've made a decision to deposit. So of course, at this time, at another time of the year, say this is March, say this is February, it's going to look pretty different. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to send invitations to students saying, hey, we can offer you a better price. You want to talk? And this goes back to what we talked about earlier in the webinar, which is oftentimes your actual price for a given student is a very competitive price. But since that student didn't apply to your institution, they applied to a couple of others, you never get to share that information with them. And if you were able to share it with them, that would very much change a lot of those students' thinking about which school is probably a better choice for them given how much it costs and what ROI, what they want to get out of that experience. So, Jay, is there anything on the live site that you wanted to point out in particular?
Well, and just a couple of points, if you want to scroll back up here, Mark. And I work with a lot of colleges across the country, and they bring me some interesting pieces. So for you as well, and you've got an academic team there, and if you have an athletic team, this is a tool also to fill some gaps in programs. So if you've got a business program that is short on enrollment, you can look for that required major of business. If there is if there's a sports team, if there's a volleyball team or a basketball team that is still looking for some athletes, you can use this as a tool to help that department as well. So this tool is a lot of things to a lot of people at institutions, and one of really the most glaring piece of this is that you are now engaging students who have been through the process and who have applied. They've been accepted. So these are serious students. They just haven't made a decision. Or in some of these cases, like we are, we're far along in this year's process. What about the students that decided not to go to school? And a lot of times that's just based on cost. So that can be a lot of low-income students. And this is a space for you to just present your college. Maybe they haven't heard of you or they didn't apply to your school, and give those students an option to attend school.
One of the things that we've seen is that students go through the college search process, and early on, when they don't have actual prices in front of them, there's all kinds of stuff going on in their heads about what the price might be, whether they can afford what or what not. But there's all kinds of mythology out there, and I know that you all deal with that on a regular basis in trying to clear up some of that stuff. But then when actual prices show up, suddenly the conversation changes for a lot of students, because now they're finally able to say, okay, is that price worth what I think that institution can give me? And for many of your institutions, I think you're in a position then to really have a powerful message to come out and say, yeah, you've applied to, let's just say this student here, Sarah Lawrence and Emerson, you've got these two prices, but we could slide in and offer a better price. And now that they're actually looking at price, you can have a much more concrete conversation. You can see for this student, and let's see your slides down and see a couple of others here. There are students where you see that they have ones and the response to the question about where this school sits in your rank, and then when they see actual prices, their situation is very different. So if you were looking at this student from Illinois and you were seeing how this sort of played out, you know that if you can come in with a better price than the prices that they're looking at, that you might have a real chance of attracting that student to your school and attracting them pretty quickly. So that's the way that TuitionFit looks. That's the way it works. And of course, with this data, then you can use it and filter it by looking at the price points of the schools you tend to have a lot of cross apps with. And when you're designing your financial aid strategy, now you're not sort of ruled by anecdotes or ruled by the letters that you did see because a student shared them with you when they were asking for a better price or trying to negotiate or appeal. So that's how this tool works right out of the gate. Let's see if we can get back to the platform here and see if, just take a quick break here and just ask if anybody has any questions about any parts of this tool. If you have any questions you want to pop into the chat box, go ahead. And if not, that's fine too. We'll just keep plugging on. Are there any questions that anybody wants to add to the chat box right now? Anything that we didn't explain well enough, or something that didn't seem quite like you were able to make sense of what we're trying to do? I don't see anybody typing, Jay, do you?
No, we must be a lot better than we think we are.
Either that or else everybody's got the post-lunch haze. So again, what we're trying to do here is on both sides of the equation, remove the anxiety about price and affordability on the student side, and empower them to make a more concrete assessment of value. One of the things that I know is the case for many of your institutions is that students come in and the graduation rates are higher than regional public institutions in the area, and you can make this case now because you can actually put price right in front of people. And one of the things that it really does do for students is it increases their confidence about the fit of the institution that they choose. Some of the work that I've done is in dealing with attrition and retention. And one of the issues that comes up is a student who comes to an institution who's already borrowing a lot of money. They're just primed to be in a position where the first thing that goes wrong sort of adds to that worry that, well, I'm spending too much at a place and I don't know if I can afford it. On the college side, you really now can make a compelling case with actual price, which for many of you, the actual price is one of your most powerful selling points that you don't get to trot out as often as you'd like because the students don't apply. The other thing you do is you really differentiate yourself by being transparent right out of the gate, especially when you send an invitation to a student saying, look, we can offer you a better price. Do you want to talk? And it allows the student to then start from the price that you give them and then develop their sense of value as you show them the rest of the things that you do. And it allows the students, I think, to develop a more convincing sense of ROI and their sense of value. Anything you want to add, Jay?
You know, the one thing that I would like to add is, you know, in our traditional recruiting process and the traditional enrollment funnel, it usually stops after the student has applied and they've received the reward letter. It usually hits a screeching halt at this point. And TuitionFit is a tool now that stops, or that just kind of expands now that bottleneck. It opens up that bottleneck where students will actually get to see price before they apply at schools. And on the other hand, like Mark said, a lot of great schools out there with a lot of great prices. For the first time, you'll be able to show a price to a student and talk value about your institution with a student before they've applied to your school. So the funnel no longer is, you know, a beginning and an end, especially the schools with rolling admissions. This process goes year round. So, you know, there's a lot to be said for, you know, price transparency and starting the conversation there. And in both cases, you know, for the student and for the college, it's a win-win.
Right. The whole idea of being able to repopulate your funnel later on and not being totally dependent upon did we get enough applications from all the names we bought really does change the game for schools. It allows you to just continually find more students that you can bring in even after they haven't applied to your school initially, but they're still certainly undecided. They haven't picked a college yet.
And one other point, when you recruit a TuitionFit student, these are students that have already been through the process. And, you know, if they select your institution, I would argue that your yield rate on those students are going to go through the roof. They're going to make that decision based on a lot more information than they previously had, and they selected your institution. So you have a much higher chance of those students starting school and, you know, like Mark mentioned, the attrition and the retention piece of that student as well.
So I think it's important to answer a question that, you know, everybody out there ought to be quite wondering, and which is, how do we know that the students that are on TuitionFit are the kind of students that would even give our institution a sniff, especially since maybe your institution only recruits, most of the students you recruit come from your own region. And it wouldn't make a lot of sense if the students on TuitionFit are all from the Northwest if you're trying to recruit students that are just in the Southeast. So I think it's really important to sort of talk that through. We're all sort of accustomed to just sort of passively making a transaction with an organization that sells you just a list of names, and then you just start working those names, and some of them are great, some of them are terrible, but you don't know that until you start working them. What we want to do is something very different here. And the way that we want to do this really is as a continuous collaboration, where we're really teaming up with you to help you be successful. So here's a couple of things that we want to do. And Jay, I know you can talk about this at length.
So as a 15-year director of admissions, this piece to me is just stunning, and this is absolute gold. So we have our lists that we work. We all know what our conversions are on those lists, but we all wonder what happened to the other students. Where did they go to school? Why didn't they apply at our school? And this is where that self-reflection comes in, and we're always looking to improve. And for TuitionFit, we will take part of that subscription, and we are going to market in your region. And we want to get the folks in your region onto the TuitionFit site. So, as Mark was talking about that right student, so the folks that are in your region currently, we want to get them onto the site. So we'll market to those folks. And you as a subscriber will be able to identify them geographically, excuse me, and see the choices that they were making, the choices that they applied, the award letters that they received, and it'll give you another shot, another bite of the apple, so to say, of these students.
If you are particularly focused on, okay, let's say you're trying to get students from New York City, then what we'll do is, first of all, we'll ask you that, where do you want to get students from? And then we'll take some of the money that you've spent on your subscription and put that toward promoting TuitionFit in that region that you're trying to get students. The second thing we're going to do here is, and this is kind of something that I think just is really fun. But Jay, you want to talk about this?
This is actually where I was going. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, so you can tell as an admissions guy, I get excited about this. But those leads that you have that are non-responders, or these are folks that you make contact with, and then they're no longer communicating with you. You can share those leads with us. You can share a first name. You can share an email address. And what we'll do is we'll market to them. We'll market them to get onto the TuitionFit site. So, this is where, as a subscriber, you're going to see those folks come onto the site, and you're going to see where they applied. And, once you see that information, like we were showing you on the platform, you're going to be able to look at that and go, well, look, we're a lot more competitive here. We are a better value. They just didn't apply to my school for whatever the reason is. It can be so many different things, but the point is that now these non-responders, you're going to get a chance to communicate with them, and you have to remember why they're on our site. They're on our site because they haven't made a decision, so they're looking for more options. So now you get to go after those folks again and present your institution.
Yeah, this is one of these things where, it's nice if the student's funnel ends up mirroring the institution's funnel, but we all know this, that students go through this process in lots of different ways and lots of different speeds and timelines. And so, they might have heard from you back in the fall, but just didn't click for them, and then they moved on to some other institutions. You would have been a great fit for each other, but the timing was just a miss. So then we work to get that student onto the TuitionFit platform because they're looking for price transparency themselves. And then when you have that subscription, now you get onto TuitionFit, and sure enough, there those students are, and you have a second bite at the apple where you can then come to them with your actual price and really improve the value of each of those leads that at this point they've stopped communicating with you, or they never responded to you at all.
And then this is where we come in. Mark was talking earlier. It's a continuous collaboration. This isn't just a transaction where you purchase something from us. This is week in, month in, year after year, that we're going to provide a service for you. That we're going to be some consultants for you. We're going to open up that dialogue, and we're going to help you recruit more students. Our goal is for you to to enroll more students and to graduate more students. So that's our promise to you.
And this means just helping you make sense of some of the data and think through what the implications are. And that doesn't mean at all that you can't do that yourself. But what we've found is that institutions that use this platform, suddenly that they see things they've never had a chance to see before because they never had access to any of this data. And once that happens, they start thinking about, well, what kinds of students should we try to attract that we just never had a shot at before? And so you can use the data to sort of figure out some different things and apply those implications as you move forward and sort of develop a whole other way of doing what you do that's more efficient. And what we want to do is just help with that process. And if it's nothing more than just a sounding board, just to talk through stuff, yeah, that's what we do. Our goal is really help you be more successful, because at the end of the day, what we really want is we want to help more students find the best designed and most affordable college experience, and help the colleges focused on the experience and affordability find more students. It's one of the things that I've really been concerned about in a lot of the conversations about free college recently is we actually really need all of the higher ed institutions around the country, private and public, to survive and thrive. We're here in the Midwest, and there's a lot of schools in small towns that if those schools struggle or go out of business, that whole town is in trouble. And those schools are perfectly situated to be the best option for the first generation lower income student that's in a rural setting. And so what we want to see is those institutions succeed. And that might not just be necessarily schools in rural areas, but I think schools that are all a part of the Yes We Must coalition because of the values that you share. We know how important you are to the larger higher education landscape. And so what we really want to do is bring what we can bring to help that succeed. And that's a big part of our mission. And so if we can be a useful sounding board or a resource for you, then we want to do that. Are there any questions about anything that we've said so far? If you have one, fire away. We got someone typing something in now, so that's good. That means that we've said something that probably needs some clarification. Let's see if we can find that question in here. There we go. How would you address the appearance that this could exacerbate the discount war? That is a great question, Mark. And this is something where we have found that a couple of things. One is that the discount rate is one of these numbers that higher education institutions have certainly gotten obsessed about. But at the end of the day, it's really about, did you bring in enough money to pay for what you do, right? So the discount rate becomes a thing that people focus on. But if your institution is able to pay for what you do and deliver what you deliver, then okay, then the discount rate becomes less of a factor. Now, what I think will happen as a function of this is that for institutions that are already offering a particularly good price because they discount a lot, those institutions aren't going to have other institutions come in and underbid them, because who would do that? There aren't any other institutions that offer a higher discount rate. The other thing is that the students that apply to your institutions, if your institutions are like what I think they are, students are applying to your school and several other public institutions and maybe community colleges. So you have a way to differentiate yourself there that, yes, the discount rates are very different, but it's a lot of it has to do with what the starting sticker price is, and then the conversations about graduation rates and student success, because it's not just about coming in, it's about completing. So there are certainly some schools that are, for lack of a better term, sort of higher up the pecking order. Maybe they're a top 50 school, maybe they're a top 25 to 50 in the US News rankings, where there really is a sort of prestige wannabe attitude that goes there. Those institutions, yeah, they might suffer more than they benefit from a tool like this, because they have been benefiting from being able to charge people more than they probably should, because they've glommed onto a prestige thing. But institutions that are not in that sort of elite wannabe status, this is going to be a different beast for them, because there's not going to be an institution that's going to come up from the bottom and make them bring their price down. So that's what we've seen so far. Certainly the other piece of this puzzle is transparency means transparency. And it does mean that both sides get to see the same thing. And then how that plays out, yeah, there's going to be some things that need to change. But we already know that. We know that there's a lot that needs to change in higher ed and to make what we do better. And some of it has to do with cost. And that's a reality that we're facing already. What we think that this tool does is it now gives people clarity to see what that actually looks like, and gives you some opportunity to innovate within a space where you kind of can see where that goes. Right now, the challenge for every institution is you just don't know what you don't know. And so it's pretty hard to compete when you don't know what other institutions are doing. Got one other question coming in, and we'll wait for the technology to get it to us. Type faster. No, I'm kidding. No pressure. No pressure. And by the way, if you want to follow up on some of these answers later, please feel free to do that. We'll give you the email addresses and phone numbers later. Have you seen students and parents attempting to instigate a bidding war? No, we haven't. Because, and this, I think I probably couldn't say this more urgently or more passionately, we're not suggesting that people should simply just buy the cheapest college they can find no matter what. And in fact, the public isn't shopping that way anyway. They don't do that. You don't do that with a car or a house or anything else. You don't just buy the cheapest one in the price range and don't care about the rest. People do care about the rest, and they care a lot about the rest. So what that does means that the conversation that you're always trying to have, which is about value, now gets some more clarity because you have a price tag to connect it to value. And that, I think, is important. We have not seen parents and students trying to play out a bidding war in some long-standing way, because that's not that much fun for them either. And in fact, they recognize that certain schools really are the one that they would like to go to, or they like the program that's there, or they like some of the people that they met, and they have a sense of fit. So what this does now is it just brings the financial side of it into clarity. And like I think I said before, I think that for institutions like yours, this gives you a huge advantage, because now you can just bring that price out and say, look, that's what it's going to cost. This is how easy it is to graduate in 4 years here. And this is the kind of experience you're going to have. And everything then after that is a conversation where you're just adding to the value. Right now, what happens for a lot of students, I think, is that they hear people talk about value, 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 but because the price tag doesn't get introduced until the end of the conversation, it's more likely to end up being something that underwhelms or disappoints rather than really hits the nail on the head. So the last comment is actually just a comment, and thank you. Somebody loves the idea of transparency. Brilliant. We do too. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about was just to show you kind of how this is playing out on the student side. When we launched it last year, we launched this thing really with a word of mouth thing to just see what would happen. Would people share information? Because this is absolutely a trust exercise. And what we found was, just with word of mouth, people were sharing information and they were willing to do this. Now that we've gone through a cycle and through this summer, these are some of the organizations that are already teaming up with us to encourage and get students to use this thing. Everything from the National College Access Network to some of the other organizations that are based in particular states. In Illinois, in particular, Illinois really wants to have all their students use this tool because they really want to have data. And it has a lot to do with the state trying to figure out something about funding for higher education and to understand why it is that so many students are leaving the state of Illinois. And they just don't know the answers. So they want the data. But what that means is more and more students will be signing up for this platform as a function of that. The College Access Research and Action Group, for those of you that are in the New York City area, or those of you who've been paying attention to the higher ed conferences, you might have seen the film Personal Statement that just got nominated for an Emmy. That's a documentary about students going through the college search process and students that were participants in the College Access Research and Action sort of peer-to-peer mentoring program. They're using TuitionFit now throughout all the schools that they work with, the students that they work with, for obvious reasons. They want to help their students have more clarity about price and make this process more simple. And then lastly, down at the bottom, the TuitionFit Transparency Project. And the idea here is that college search professionals and financial planners around the country, they want to take a stand for this. And they're starting to join up with this project just to say, we're going to have all of the families that we work with and all the students that we work with use this tool because we believe that the public desperately needs transparency. And that's a group of individuals and organizations that's sort of building every week as more folks find out about it. One more comment here from somebody that has a name that you ought to all recognize by now. Can we talk about cost and our hope to gain a couple of years of support for Yes We Must members to prove the positive impact for institutions and students we serve? Yes. So part of the conversation that started this whole thing is I reached out to Gloria after being introduced to her and wanted to talk about how do we use this platform in a way that really does demonstrate its value for institutions like the institutions in the Yes We Must Coalition. And one of the things that we talked about was find a way that maybe institutions across the country that all share a mission, that are all part of a similar coalition, join this thing together, and we can demonstrate and sort of, one, take this thing out for a real test drive and try it over a couple of years, but also then use it to show how this helps us connect with more students and the students find our institutions, and together it sets a model in place for other institutions to say, you know what, maybe transparency really is the way to go, and maybe we can actually prove out how this idea does impact institutions and the students and do it with data that we gather. So the idea was pull together a coalition, pull together a group of colleges that all subscribe together. And one of the things that we talked about was either figuring out a way to, as a coalition, all come on together for a discounted price. And that probably means that I ought to mention the price right out of the gate is $9,000 a year for institutions. But as a coalition, we would want to bring that price down so that we make it possible for everybody to join up. But the other idea that we talked about was, let's see if we can find a grant to then bring all of us together, all the institutions together, have that grant support both the project itself and then the learning that comes from using this tool and embracing this value in a way then that sort of shows the way for higher education to move to a better place. So that's one of the things that we've talked about, and I hope that's something that you as an organization will talk about after this webinar. So are there any other questions or comments that people want to plug in at this time? Please know that if you want to have a longer conversation about some aspect of the platform or our goals or our principles or anything else technical, please don't hesitate to contact us directly. You can call me up on the phone or send me an email. Same with Jay. But there's a lot of questions I'm sure that folks have that pop into people's heads as we show this to folks. and we really want to be available to you for that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We've got one more thought coming in, and we're going to see if we'll hang on until that gets posted or pops up. There we go. Do you have any sort of breakdown by state of students using the platform? So we have some projections of how that's going to play out in the next year. What I can tell you from this last year was that just on word of mouth, we'll end up with about 1,000 to 1,500 award letters up in the system with students from 42 different states around the country. I don't think we got anybody from Alaska, although I think that might change in the next year. But we did get people from a military base out in the South Pacific as well. But in this next year, so two things are playing out. One is I'm really sure that we're going to see a lot of students from Illinois. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of students from the Northeast. We saw bubbles popping up in all of the regions in the country where it's expensive to live, and there's a lot of families that are in that space where they're getting crunched. So they're the families that don't quite qualify for Pell, but they're families that's only making about $150,000 a year, and they live in a place where all that money gets sucked up by cost of living and taxes and everything else. And those folks, we saw a lot of them in the suburban areas in North Carolina and some in Florida. We saw a whole bunch of them in Northern California and in the Seattle area. We saw a bunch of them in Northern New Jersey. But this also gets back to the way that we really want to design this project, which is you tell us where you want to see students on this platform, and then we can go get those students by promoting this tool online, advertising, by direct email marketing, and by working with school counselors. We have developed a really interesting relationship with school counselors across the country, many of whom are in that place where they don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of time, but they really want to know about resources that help answer questions for students quickly. And TuitionFit's one of those tools because it gets right to the price question and makes it simple and transparent. So we want to team up with you to get the students on the platform that are in the regions that you want to see them in and you typically recruit from. So we will team up with you to do that. Jay, is there anything else you want to add?
No final thoughts here. I hope you all are going to have a great class from your past year's recruiting. And we hope that we can help make that even better in years to come.
So what I was hoping you would do next is talk amongst yourselves and your colleagues. Is this a tool that you think would be helpful to you? And if it is, let's find a way to team up with you. You can either contact us directly or figure out a way across the coalition that we might be able to find a way to team up a bunch of the schools that are interested across the Yes We Must coalition and make this a project that I think we might be able to really do something in higher ed bigger than just succeeding at your own institution in terms of getting students that would really benefit at your schools, but at the same time show higher education that there might be a way to get us out of the space that we're in. Because as you know, we're all in a kind of a mess here. Gloria says that she will reach out to those who register to talk about next steps. So while she's doing that, please don't hesitate to send us questions or comments. And if you want to sign on even prior to having a conversation with the rest of the coalition, and then the coalition talks about you want to do this, don't worry about that. We'll absolutely, if you pay us for a subscription and then the coalition joins in so you get a discount, we'll give you your money back to make that all work out. So don't worry about that stuff as well. But thank you very much. Really appreciate the chance to talk to all of you. And I really hope that we can find a way to team up because I know the public wants this. And I know us in higher ed, we all know we got to get out of this high price, high discount pricing model. And so far, we haven't figured out a way to do that. I think this might be it. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of the day and your weekend. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.